Hello and welcome back. This time I wanted to talk about prayer as Jesus presents it to us, and I wanted to enlarge on what I've said before about prayer. In Luke's Gospel, in chapter 11, verses 1 to 13, Jesus deals over those verses with prayer, and it's very interesting to see the messages that he gives us about what prayer is all about. It begins with his disciples asking him to teach them how to pray. And this is very interesting because we hear that Jesus always went off alone where he could be alone and prayed there. And so they hadn't actually heard him pray, but they'd seen him pray and knew that prayer was an important part of his life. And usually before any of his major sermons that he gave or major preaching that he did, he had spent time in prayer, and this is why they asked him to tell them how to pray. His prayer that he taught, the actual prayer which we know as Our Father, is a very interesting example of what he sees as a good prayer. It begins, of course, with Our Father, and so this prayer is not to my Father, your Father, or whoever else's Father. It's our Father. And this is very important because he's stressing the fact that we do need each other, that we are united, that it is important that we involve those we come into contact with in whatever happens in our lives. You see, whether we like it or not, we are very much involved with other people. So much so that, for example, we cannot build our happiness on other people's unhappiness. If I know that what I'm doing is contributing to someone else's unhappiness, I cannot be genuinely happy. And we see this in our reactions when we do something that we know causes pain or causes difficulty to someone else. You'll often hear people say things like, I don't want to talk about it, or that's not my problem, and so on, or they'll start criticizing the person that they know they've wronged. And this is what we do in life, because we actually know deep down that we cannot build our happiness on the unhappiness of others. It's also that we are called to prayer for a good reason. There's an Italian writer, Enzo Bianchi, who says, prayer is not an act of expressing strong emotions, asking God to do our will, but a journey by means of which we come to acknowledge and accept God's will. This is in his book Le Parole per Spiritualità, published by Rizzoli. And that is very true, that through our prayer, we find our way to God. However, Jesus does promise us that our prayers will be answered. But of course, he promises us that God will give us what we need, what we ask for. He goes on to talk about how even a parent wouldn't give the child something that's bad for them. And in this way, God wouldn't give us something that is not for our good. What our problem is sometimes when we feel that our prayers aren't answered is we're not looking at the difference between need and want. Jesus promises that God will give us what we need. He doesn't promise that necessarily we'll get what we want. And this is because those are two very different concepts, need and want. I found a very good example of how prayer works, written, and unfortunately I don't remember who said so, but he says, I asked for strength, God gave me difficulties to make me strong. I asked for wisdom, and God gave me problems to solve. I asked for courage, and God gave me dangers to overcome. I asked for love, and God sent me hurt people to help. My prayer was answered. That's very much how prayer works. There's another lovely piece I read talking about the Our Father that says, Our Father, not only my Father, or of those I love, or of those I get on with, those in my circle, my fellow countrymen, but also of those who don't see him as I do, those who have hurt me, those who are against me, those who get in my way, Father of every man and every woman, of every race, of every nationality, our Father. And this is the wonder of our prayer and of the teaching of Jesus, where he gives us this very real view of where we are in our world. And I trust that your prayer life will be rich and will bring you this wisdom, this acknowledgement of God's will, so that you may live a peaceful life, knowing that God is there, that he cares for you, and that you need not worry about anything, because he will give you what you really need. And may God bless you. Thank you.